Hello, welcome to AT and Communication. My name is Jerry Schaefer, and I'm an educational consultant with the Capital Area Intermediate Unit in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. My colleague, Shauna Montgomery, and I have developed the following module as part of the Tier 1 assistive technology process. This process was designed to build capacity in assistive technology within our local school districts and cooperating agencies. Each module is designed to provide information about best practice in assistive technology. So let's get started with AT and communication. Hello. Well, let me start by saying that I'm a speech language pathologist and communication is my favorite part of AT. I think I could talk for a week about this topic. However, you would probably get very tired, so I promise to stay on track and only give you a quick overview. I can't possibly cover everything, but this is Tier 1, so you're looking for general ideas to provide all students with communication opportunities. I've broken down the process into 5 main areas: the communication partner, motivation, communication modes, vocabulary selection, and access. We're going to break these down a little bit today. First, let's talk about the communication partner. In my experience, we don't talk enough about this topic. It may seem obvious, but communication takes at least 2 people. It's important that we set some ground rules for our classroom about the role of the communication partner. That role could include modeling, interpreting, technical problem solving, and prompting. When teaching a student to use communication effectively, we also need to teach the listener about their role in the process. In our special education classrooms, this typically means the adult, but it also needs to include classroom peers. So what is the role of the communication partner? Let's break that down a little more. The first role of the communication partner is modeling. I can't stress enough that if you're not modeling the same communication system as the student will be much less likely to use their system. Think about it. Young babies learn language by hearing it and imitating. The same is true for deaf and hard of hearing children using sign language. The same is true for anyone learning a second language. It's true for them, and it's true for our students using a communication board or device. They need to see others using the system in some form. That could mean a communication board. It doesn't have to be a device, but the adults and peers can point to a picture system and model the language. The next role is interpreting. This is tricky. It's important for the communication partner to do some interpreting for the student using AC. Many times, the student depends on an adult or a peer to repeat what they have said for a larger audience. Or they interpret because, let's face it, it can be more efficient. However, it's a slippery slope. Often the communication partner can misinterpret what the user wanted to say, or the partner takes too much control away from the AAC user. You have to be careful. It's a delicate balance, so try to be respectful. Even with the best intentions, we sometimes overstep our boundaries, and it can lead to frustration or dependency on the part of the AAC user, and that's what we want to try to avoid. The next role is technical problem solving. Okay, I know we don't go into the educational field to repair AAC devices, but if something is seriously wrong with the device, I would suggest that you learn how to fix it. That said, it's going to be the responsibility of the communication partner to do a few things for the user. For example, you may have to turn the device on or off. You may have to do some basic programming. You may have to call the company and ask them to walk you through some troubleshooting. My best advice is to assign someone to do these duties and not the SLP because they're just not in the room often enough. Keep a log of the technical problems so you can discuss them with your team, and remain flexible and open to these responsibilities. They're vital to keeping the system working, and without that system working, the student doesn't have a voice. So how would you feel if your voice was taken away? It's really important that that technical problem-solving piece be covered by someone in the class. The last role that we're going to talk about today for the communication partner is prompting. I've said it once and I'll say it 1,000 times more. Have a prompt hierarchy in place. Have a team meeting and discuss where the student might be on the prompting hierarchy and what the next goal is. Make all the team members aware of this prompting hierarchy and train your staff. Display the hierarchy where everyone can see. We know from experience if you prompt a student too often or not enough, it has a significant effect on the success of the AAC. We want enough prompting to motivate the student, but not too much, or they can become prompt dependent, which is not what we want. After the role of the communication partner, our next topic is motivation. I get a lot of questions about how to motivate students to communicate, and I have a few things to say about this. First, I'd like you to keep in mind this statement by Bruce Baker, who's a linguist and a researcher who developed MinSpeak, the language inside Pranky-Romic devices. He says that motivation needs to be greater than the physical effort plus the cognitive effort plus the time it takes to create the message. So think about this. Our students often have complex bodies. They're tired, sometimes hungry, sometimes dehydrated. They have challenges in the areas of processing, memory, attention, and persistence. If it's too difficult for them to express an idea, they won't even attempt it. They'll become passive and allow the adult partner to talk for them. They need time. It takes a long time to formulate a complete thought on a device. Please make sure you're building in significant response time. Wait for the student. Teach others to wait. It really does pay off. Secondly, increasing motivation is about 3 ideas: social connection, control, and fun. Communication is not about answering academic questions. It's not about making snack choices, and it's certainly not about asking to go to the bathroom. My eyes just rolled because I see the bathroom icon on way too many communication boards, just taking up space, but that's a discussion for another time. What I want to express here is that our students want what everyone wants: to feel connected, loved, and respected. If your communication exchanges are missing this important idea, then you aren't providing appropriate opportunities, period. If you're not doing this already, because I know many of you are, please start talking to all of your students about life experiences, pets and kids and vacations, personal things that make you and them individuals. That's what real communication is about. Then, please try to remember to give your students control. Their lives are run by adults all day long, from the time they wake up in the morning to the time they go to bed at night. Adults direct them, feed them, sometimes dress or change them. They drive them to school, push their wheelchairs, tell them their schedules, and expect them to comply all day long. That's not motivating. It's just the opposite. We all want some autonomy in our day, and so do our students. Try to set up communication so they have control. What they say goes. Empower the communication interactions. I know this is hard for some of us, but we have to let go of the control. Give that to our AAC user. Lastly, and most importantly, have fun. Shine some light on your students' day. Play music and games, videos, read books, talk about current events related to their age. If they are young users, this is usually easier. But as they grow older, please begin to use age-appropriate materials. The guidelines I like to use: fun for everyone. If it's fun for all ages, then it's appropriate. For example, Disney movies. Even adults like Disney movies, so don't be afraid to use them. However, teens sometimes want more mature content: Harry Potter, Star Wars, sports. For girls, they like fashion and nails and hair and makeup. So be aware of the maturity level of your student. It will help them have something in common with their peers, and it will create topics for peers to talk to them about. One last thing about communication and motivation. Everyone communicates. It's impossible to be awake and not communicate. So if you can't do it verbally, you'll find other ways, usually through behavior. Sometimes it's not good behavior either. We cannot punish a student for poor behavior if they have no other means to communicate. It's wrong. Please don't do it. Either give them the means to communicate effectively and appropriately, or accept the behavior you get instead. Once we've taken a look at the roles of the communication partner and what motivates our students, I'd like to talk a little bit about communication modes. As we know, AT doesn't always mean high tech. The same is true for AAC. It can be a variety of systems. It can be body language, like facial expressions, body movements, and eye gaze. It can be sign language, regardless of the student's hearing abilities. We often use sign to help children learn language concepts. It might be objects, eye gaze boards, or paper communication boards. It's also writing and drawing. When we discuss communication in the Tier 1 process, we want to examine all the communication modes in your classroom. If you're only using one mode, typically verbal communication, then you're not providing enough variety. All students need modeling and opportunities to express themselves in different ways. This goes back to the control. We can't force a student to use a communication device. We can't force a student to talk. Give them choices and let them decide the supports they need. In some cases, they will need many different ways to communicate, sometimes using their voice, sometimes using a communication board, sometimes signaling to an adult. Examine your students and see what they are already doing. How can you expand it? Don't just replace what they are doing with a device. Vocabulary selection. This topic is extensive and I only have time to say a few things. However, if you're having trouble deciding which vocabulary to work on with a student, please contact me and we can brainstorm. When thinking about vocabulary, we first need to understand at what level the student is communicating. Are they using one word? Maybe they're putting words together. Maybe they have sentence structure. Ultimately, we want to give students enough vocabulary so they can generate novel utterances and send clear messages. When modeling vocabulary, the rule of thumb is to model 1 or 2 words above the student's current level. So if they're using one-word utterances, you can model 2 or 3 words. For example, if they say go, you might say make it go, or let's go, or go away, depending on the intention of the utterance. Next, make sure the message your student can use are motivating. We already talked about this in motivation and what that means. And be aware your student's ability to decode text. Most communication boards are picture representations along with text. These pictures help students remember the location of the word without requiring them to read. The last area of communication I'm going to talk about is access. Although this is last in the presentation, it doesn't mean that it's a last priority. In fact, the way a student will access the mode of communication often dictates that mode. For example, if a student can't verbalize, then a picture system or AAC device will be necessary. Can the student point? Can they use their hands? Do they need a switch? Maybe at their knee, maybe at their head. Maybe they need a pointer. The 3 main areas of access are direct, switch scanning, and partner assisted. Direct selection refers to verbalizing or directly pointing to a communication system. It's the most preferred way to communicate and it's the most efficient because it's easiest and fastest. Switch scanning is utilized when the student cannot use direct selection. A switch is connected to a device or a piece of equipment and the student activates it with a part of the body. This can be anywhere that a reliable movement can be established. At the hand, knee, foot, chin, eyes, eyebrows, etc. Sometimes the student needs a partner to help them scan. This is partner-assisted communication and means establishing some basic communication rules. Usually the student will use eye gaze or some type of signal, and the partner will point and scan through the choices and wait for the signal. It's a great way to interact with students, and I find the students enjoy being close to the communication partner. So it's a win-win. I hope you have some ideas about setting up the communication in your classroom and how AT can help support your efforts. It's not easy and it takes time. Maybe set up 1 or 2 small goals and work on that first. Then keep adding until you have all 5 areas covered: communication partners, motivating opportunities, a variety of communication modes, appropriate vocabulary selection, and effective access will lay a foundation for your communication in your classroom. Thank you for taking the time to complete the module AT and Communication. Please remember to complete the reflection questions and review the extra materials provided. If you have any questions about this module or you would like to discuss your role in the AT process, please feel free to email or call us. This is our contact information and website address. Please remember that AT consultants are available for in-person training and consultation with your team.